Today we shall be exploring the key aspects of evaluation and control. The evaluation and control process ensures that a company is achieving what it set out to accomplish. It compares performance with desired results and provides the feedback necessary for management to evaluate results and take corrective action as needed. This process can be viewed as a 5-step feedback model. So we determine what to measure, where top managers and operational managers need to specify which implementation processes and results will be monitored and evaluated. Second, we establish standards of performance. Standards used to measure performance are detailed expressions of strategic objectives. Each standard usually includes a tolerance range, which defines acceptable deviations. Third, we measure actual performance. Measurements must be made at predetermined times to make actual performance relevant. Fourth, compare actual performance with the standard. If actual performance results are within the desired tolerance range, the measurement process stops here. Fifth is to take corrective action. Now, if the actual results fall outside the desired tolerance range, action must be taken to correct the deviation. Evaluation and control information must be relevant to what is being monitored. One of the obstacles to effective control is the difficulty in developing appropriate measures of important activities and outputs. The subject matter in this video is divided into 4 sections, which are measuring performance, strategic information systems, problems in measuring performance, and lastly, the guidelines for proper control. Performance is the end result of activity. Measures to assess performance are based on the organizational unit to be appraised and the objectives to be achieved. Based on what is to be evaluated, the performance measures change. Hence, we shall look at appropriate measures, types of controls, activity-based costing, enterprise risk management, primary measures of corporate performance, and primary measures of divisional and functional performance. Talking about appropriate measures. Some measures such as return on investment and earnings per share are appropriate for evaluating a corporation's or a division's ability to achieve profitability. However, these are inadequate for evaluating additional corporate objectives such as social responsibility or employee development. A firm, therefore, needs to develop measures that predict likely profitability. These are referred to as steering controls because they measure variables that influence future profitability. Every industry has its own set of key metrics which tend to predict profits. Thus, airlines closely monitor cost per passenger mile. Retail stores use the inventory ratio in which a retailer's cost of goods sold is divided by the average value of its inventories. Or another steering control frequently used by companies is customer satisfaction. Talking about the types of controls. Controls can be established to focus on actual performance results, that is outputs, the activities that generate the performance, that is behavior, or on resources that are used in performance, that is inputs. Output controls specify what is to be accomplished by focusing on the end result of the behaviors through the use of objectives and performance targets or milestones. Behavior controls specify how something is to be done through policies, rules, standard operating procedures, and orders from a superior. Examples of increasingly popular behavior controls are the ISO 9000 and 14000 standards series on quality and environmental assurance, which were developed by the International Standards Association of Geneva, Switzerland. Input controls emphasize resources such as knowledge, skills, abilities, values, and motives of employees. The second set we deal with activity-based costing and enterprise risk management. Activity-based costing is a recently developed accounting method for allocating indirect and fixed costs to individual products or product lines based on the value-added activities going into that product. This accounting method is thus very useful in doing a value chain analysis of a firm's activities after making outsourcing decisions. Activity-based costing recognizes that the special engineering, special testing, machine setups, and others are activities that cause costs. Thus, they cause the company to consume resources. Under activity-based costing, the company will calculate the cost of the resources used in each of these activities. Next, the cost of each of these activities will be assigned only to the products that demanded the activities. After this, we talk about enterprise risk management. Enterprise risk management is a corporate-wide integrated process for managing the uncertainties that could negatively or positively influence the achievement of the corporation's objectives. In the past, managing risk was done in a fragmented manner within functions or business units. Individuals would manage process risk, safety risk, and insurance, financial, and other assorted risks. As a result of this fragmented approach, companies would take huge risks in some areas of the business while overmanaging substantially smaller risks in other areas. Enterprise risk management is increasingly being used as it is evident that companies with integrative risk management capabilities achieve superior economic performance. Coming to primary measures of corporate performance. Corporate performance in the current scenario is measured using a host of traditional financial measures as well as newer non-financial measures. The most commonly used traditional measure of corporate performance, that is in terms of profits, is return on investment, ROI. It is simply the result of dividing net income before taxes by the total amount invested in the company. Then we also have earnings per share or EPS, which involves dividing net earnings by the amount of common stock, or we have return on equity ROE, which involves dividing net income by total equity. Other than these, there are a lot many traditional measures which may be used. Some of the recent non-financial measures relate to internet business ventures and include stickiness, that is the length of website visit, or eyeballs, meaning the number of people who visit a website. We can also measure mind share, that is brand awareness, and mergers and acquisitions may be priced on multiples of MUUs, that is monthly unique users, or even on registered users. Other popular measures include economic value added EVA and balanced scorecard methods. EVA has become an extremely popular shareholder value method of measuring corporate and divisional performance, and in fact may be on its way to replacing ROI as a standard performance measure. EVA measures the difference between pre-strategy and post-strategy values for the business. Balanced scorecard combines financial measures that tell the results of actions already taken with professional and operational measures on consumer satisfaction, internal processes, and the corporation's innovation and improvement activities, which are the drivers of future financial performance. Thus, steering controls are combined with the output controls. Next, we talk about the primary measures of divisional and functional performance. Companies use a variety of techniques to evaluate and control performance in divisions, strategic business units, and functional areas. One way of doing this is to establish responsibility centers. Responsibility centers are used to isolate a unit so that it can be evaluated separately from the rest of the corporation. Each responsibility center therefore has its own budget and is evaluated on its use of budgeted resources. There are 5 major types of responsibility centers that we can talk about. So we have standard cost centers, which are primarily used in manufacturing facilities. Standard, that is expected costs, are computed for each operation on the basis of historical data. In evaluating the center's performance, its total standard costs are multiplied by the units produced. The result is the expected cost of production, which is then compared to the actual cost of production. Second, we have revenue centers, which measure production in terms of unit or rupee sales without consideration of resource costs, for example, salaries. The center is thus judged in terms of effectiveness rather than efficiency. Next, we have expense centers, which measure resources in rupees without consideration for service or production costs. Typically, expense centers are administrative, service, and research departments. They cost a company money, but they only indirectly contribute to the revenues. Then we have profit centers. Performance is measured in terms of the difference between revenues and expenditures in a profit center. Fifth is an investment center. An investment center's performance is measured in terms of the difference between its resources and its services or products. For example, 2 divisions in a corporation make identical profits, but one division owns a 3 crore rupee plant, whereas the other one owns a 1 rupee crore plant. Both make the same profits, but the one which is obviously more efficient is the smaller plant, which provides the shareholders with a better return on their investment. Another method in vogue is benchmarking. Benchmarking is the continual process of measuring products, services, and practices against the toughest competitors or those companies recognized as industry leaders. It involves openly learning how others do something better than one's own company, so that the company not only can imitate, but can perhaps even improve on its techniques. Next, we shall be looking at the strategic information systems, which is the second part. Strategic information systems. Before performance measures can have any impact on strategic management, they must first be communicated to the people responsible for formulating and implementing strategic plans. Strategic information systems can perform this function very well. They can be computer-based or manual. They can be formal or informal. So we have enterprise resource planning, we have radio frequency identification, and we have divisional and functional information system support. Many corporations around the world have adopted enterprise resource planning or ERP software. ERP unites all of a company's major business activities, from order processing to production, within a single family of software modules. The system provides instant access to critical information to everyone in the organization, from the CEO to the factory floor worker. Because of the ability of ERP software to use a common information system throughout a company's many operations around the world, it is becoming the business information system's global standard. Second, we have radio frequency identification. Radio frequency identification, or RFID, is an electronic tagging technology used in a number of companies to improve supply chain efficiency. By tagging containers and items with tiny chips, companies use the tags as wireless barcodes to track inventory more efficiently. Third, we have divisional and functional information system support. As the divisional or SBU level of the corporation, the information system should be used to support, reinforce, or enlarge its business level strategy through its decision support system. An SBU pursuing a strategy of overall cost leadership could use its information system to reduce costs either by improving labor productivity or improving the use of other resources such as inventory or machinery. Merrill Lynch took this approach when it developed Prism software to provide its 500 US retail offices with quick access to financial information in order to boost the broker's efficiency. Next, we shall talk about the problems in measuring performance. The measurement of performance is a crucial part of evaluation and control. The lack of quantifiable objectives or performance standards and the inability of the information system to provide timely and valid information are two obvious control problems. The very act of monitoring and measuring performance can cause side effects that interfere with overall corporate performance. Among the most frequent negative effects are short-term orientation and goal displacement. Short-term orientation. In many situations, the top executives neither analyze the long-term implications of present operations on the strategy they have adopted, nor the operational impact of a strategy on the corporate mission. Long-run evaluations may not be conducted because the executives don't realize their importance or believe that short-run considerations are more important than long-run considerations, or they aren't personally evaluated on the long-term basis or don't have the time to make the long-run analysis. Further, many accounting-based measures such as EPS and ROI encourage a short-term orientation in which managers consider only current tactical or operational issues and ignore long-term strategic ones. The second problem we encounter is of goal displacement. If not carefully done, monitoring and measuring of performance can actually result in a decline in overall corporate performance. Goal displacement is the confusion of means with ends and occurs when activities originally intended to help managers attain corporate objectives becomes ends in themselves or are adopted to meet ends other than those for which they were intended. Two types of goal displacement are behavior substitution and sub-optimization. Behavior substitution refers to a phenomena where people substitute activities that do not lead to goal accomplishment for activities that do not because the wrong activities are being rewarded. Managers, like most other people, tend to focus more of their attention on behaviors that are clearly measurable than those that are not. Employees often receive little or no reward for engaging in hard-to-measure activities such as cooperation and initiative. Sub-optimization refers to the phenomena of a unit optimizing its goal accomplishment to the detriment of the organization as a whole. The emphasis in large corporations on developing separate responsibility centers can create some problems for the corporation as a whole. To the extent that a division or functional unit views itself as a separate entity, it might refuse to cooperate with other units or divisions in the same corporation if the corporation could in some way negatively affect its performance evaluation. Lastly, we come to guidelines for proper control. Talking about guidelines for proper control, we can say that unless controls ensure the use of the proper strategy to achieve objectives, there is a strong likelihood that dysfunctional side effects will completely undermine the implementation of the objectives. The following guidelines are recommended. 1. Control should involve only the minimum amount of information needed to give a reliable picture of events. Too many controls create confusion. Focus on the strategic factors by following the 80-20 rule is very important. So we monitor those 20% of the factors that determine 80% of the results. Second, controls should monitor only meaningful activities and results regardless of measurement difficulty. Third, controls should be timely so that corrective action can be taken before it is too late. Steering controls that monitor or measure the factors influencing performance should be stressed so that advance notice of problems is given. Fourth, long-term and short-term controls should be used. If only short-term measures are emphasized, a short-term managerial orientation is likely to develop. Fifth, controls should aim at pinpointing exceptions. Only activities or results that fall outside a predetermined tolerance range should call for action. Sixth, emphasize the reward of meeting or exceeding standards rather than punishment for failing to meet standards. Heavy punishment of failure typically results in goal displacement. Managers will fudge reports and lobby for lower standards. Thus, we can see that evaluation and control is one of the most difficult parts of strategic management.